These are the 5 cheapest flight sticks from 5 of the biggest manufacturers in the flight simming space. From Winwing, we have the Ursa Minor Airline Joystick. From Thrustmaster, we have the T-Flight Stick. From Logitech, the Extreme 3D Pro. From VKB, the Gladiator NXT Evo World War II Combat Edition. And finally, from Turtle Beach, the Velocity One Flight Stick. Today, we're reviewing every single one of these, comparing them to each other, and giving them a 1 through 10 rating on all of these categories. Now, disclaimer, I'm not paid by any of these manufacturers. I was also not sent these flight sticks by any of the manufacturers. I paid for all of them with my own money except the Velocity one that was given to me by Xbox some months back. I'm not even sure when, so this will not influence my review at all. Also, this is probably the highest effort and definitely most expensive video I've ever done. So if you like this video, make sure to like it and subscribe if you like this kind of content in general. Let's get started. And first up, we have Winwing, if you cannot see. And the first thing we are looking at is the packaging. Now, this is the A320 stick, which they call, for copyright purposes, I am sure, the Ursa Minor Airline Joystick. I do want to mention, very plain, nondescript box, except saying Winwing on the top. It is kind of enjoyable. You'll see some of the sticks later on having a fully branded box. So say you have a bunch of stuff in your closet, you need to find the box for whatever reason. It is nice to have a fully branded box. Now, firstly, we have some little Allen keys, I assume, to adjust something or take apart something. We have a cable, big foam thing, which is in the shape of the stick base here. And finally, the stick itself with a little cap in here, which I think can go over this like little trim section on the stick. Overall, well packaged. I doubt this thing would have any issues as far as being damaged in transit. This did come straight from China. More on that later. Overall, good unboxing experience. The stick appears to be in perfect form, and each stick will be getting a rating on each category, this first one being packaging. So once I'm finished with all the other ones, that rating should go up on screen somewhere right now. And next up is Thrustmaster. This is the T-Flight Stick X. Apologize for any of the dust you see on here. I did get this a while ago, but like I was mentioning with the other one, the packaging is fully branded. Obviously is not a deal breaker, but it does not go unnoticed. We'll see if it's packaged better or worse than the Winwing stick. So we have what appears to be some sort of advertising material on top, manual type of thing. We have a cable, which is, I believe, connected to the stick itself. Here we go. Okay, so straight off the bat, much less secure. As you can see, there was nothing in there. This was kind of just free balling. It is held down by some cardboard in the bottom over here, but there is nothing surrounding the stick, which is definitely not ideal. Pull this out here, and just a little plastic safety thing over the stick, which I can't imagine does much at all. And now, probably the stick that I see in you all's setups the most, the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro. Also, important to mention, this looks like the best put together external box that we've seen so far. Very attractive, very simple. Now, like I was saying, as far as sticks by themselves, this could be the most popular. I know this is a very old design, not exactly sure how old. Here's the inside, much better packaging than Thrustmaster as far as keeping the product safe. Pull out these little wing things, kind of an interesting design they used here. Here is our stick in a full plastic enclosure opposed to the Thrustmaster. And like I was saying, full plastic enclosure, which much better than Thrustmasters, but definitely not the safest we've seen so far. And there it is, the Extreme 3D Pro. We'll put the rating for the packaging for the Extreme 3D Pro on screen right now. And now VKB, probably the least known out of all of the manufacturers that we're looking at today. We have a base and a stick setup for this one. This is the Gladiator NXT Evo base module and the KG12 grip module. First, the box for the grip. I feel like there's almost nothing in here, but I am being deceived because all the other ones had the grip and base in the same package. Now, very good packaging though. Here is the stick, and there is a little bolt slash screw with a washer. Hopefully it's not to attach to the base, because that would be weird. And here is the stick. Now that is a very interesting attachment. We're not going to get into that yet, because that's not what we're looking at. Now this feels much more substantial, much heavier. We have a quick installation guide, which after seeing that connector, I may need. We have plenty of parts. We have a little screwdriver with lots of things inside. Oh no, this could be a lot. There's a rubber tube, a cable, and then here is the base. Again, very good packaging coming from VKB. They have their own signature stuff here, although it is backwards. The camera is not inverted. This is backwards for me as well. Let's see what this base looks like. Oh my goodness. I really think I've bitten off more than I can chew with this base. More foam out, and then here is the actual base plate, and this will have to all be assembled at some point. The rating for the VKB unboxing packaging on screen now. And last, but certainly not least, we have Turtle Beach. This is the Velocity One flight stick. Turtle Beach is probably the company I get asked about the most when it comes to flight sim gear, people asking if I recommend them or not. So this video will help answer that. Unboxing pretty good so far. Again, external packaging, very well done. Very attractive, probably second best so far. I did like that Logitech packaging a lot. We have a quick flight guide, some more instructions. Maybe I flip these up and pull. Ooh, very interesting and clever. Let's hope it doesn't fall out of here. And here it is, moment of truth, pulling each side apart. Again, full bag here. That's good to see. Probably cables and things of that nature in there. And let's see what this stick looks like. Full transparency. This is the only stick out of the bunch that I did not purchase myself. That being said, Turtle Beach did not send this to me. In fact, Xbox sent it to me. That will not affect the review in any way, shape, or form. And there is the Velocity One. And now on to assembly, if there is any, and connectivity, so cables and things like that. On this Ursa Minor, like I was showing you before, we have this little cover. All it is basically a magnetic thing that covers up this that you could use for trim or whatever. When we flip it over, this little tag tells us to remove the little feet on each of these things, because otherwise it'll be very slick. So it comes with this cable, which appears to be a 6-foot cable, USB Type A to USB Type C, which is good. Come to the back of the joystick, pop that in, and then that goes to your computer, and it's that simple. Now, this is a huge plus. You want the cable to be able to be disconnected. Cables break, connections break. Now, connectivity and assembly for the Thrustmaster. This one's going to be very short. There is absolutely zero assembly required. You can increase the tension of the stick there, but that's about it. The cable is permanent, which is unfortunate, and it terminates in a USB Type A, which is completely fine. And almost identical to the Thrustmaster, the assembly and connectivity for the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro is just a permanent cable. Again, disadvantage there, ending in a USB Type A that just has a little cap on it that we can take off just like that, and there's no assembly required. Now, assembly and connectivity for the VKB. Now, this one is going to be a doozy. You can see everything that is on my desk at the moment. We have a lot of things to put together, so we're gonna go through this together, get it done. Very simply put, this base has to connect to here with a bunch of screws, but before we do that, the stick has to come through. We have to connect a wire right here, screw the stick in, put it all together, and it'll be fully assembled. We will fast forward until it's ready to go, and I'll basically explain how difficult it was. Now, we are part of the way through. I'm not sure how well you can see this spring right here, but with the cables kind of freeloading like that, I wouldn't be surprised if something bad were to happen to this cable that's kind of pressed up against that at some point. It also comes with different weighted springs, so you can change the feel of the actual stick, which is cool, but not sure how many people are going to be assembling the whole thing, seeing how they like it, taking it apart, doing it again just to get the right one. So it is nice they included them. We are finishing up putting the last bolt in now on the bottom. It was looked a lot more daunting than it actually was. Just 3 bolts for the stick to sit inside of here, and then 5 on the bottom, and that is all there is to the actual assembly. Most of this other stuff is just extra things like the springs I was talking about. Now again, on this one, we do have a cable that disconnects, but correct me if I'm wrong, it is this termination, which is, I believe, a USB Type B, which my experience with these is they are much less secure. You can already see it's a little bit wobbly. Not sure if you can actually see that. And assembly / connectivity for the Turtle Beach flight stick here. Again, no assembly. It does comes with these, which are bolts that connect here, and here in case you want to, I guess, attach this to a full-on sim rig. I would think if you have a sim rig, you probably have nicer stick than this one, but it's there if you would like it, which is always a good thing. And it comes with a braided cable, which we love to see. We can see a little Xbox symbol and PC symbol on the USB-A, which goes to a USB Type-C. So again, one that can disconnect. There are 3 different ones here. I assume you can kind of use this like a hub. I'm not entirely sure there, but this one right here, PC, Xbox, USB Type-C, pop in there, solid connection, love USB Type-C. And now for button / stick feel. One thing I did notice just on picking it up, listen closely, there's something moving around in there. Bunch of buttons over here on the side. They're very plasticky. Not a huge deal, but something to note there. I am not disappointed in this hat switch feel. Trigger here, single stage, so there's a little bit of play there, ghosting the trigger like Grand Thumb would say, and then overall not bad, decent resistance. It doesn't feel super cheap or anything. I don't mind that at all. This one, again, pretty freaking wobbly, not as plasticky feeling as these are. We have a little throttle here, which is very good. It's nice to have any kind of throttle on a stick, just so if you only buy the stick first, you don't have to worry about buying a throttle, at least right off the bat. Obviously, most of you will want a throttle eventually. The most important part, very smooth. Also, this has the twist, so you can use it for rudder or if you want to use it for something else. It does have dampening. Look at that. Watch when it comes back. 3, 2, 1. Very impressive. Stick and button feel for the Thrustmaster. I apologize for the little bit of dust. It has been sitting on my floor for the past day or two. A lot more buttons on the actual stick itself. This is useful for camera. Obviously, trim is probably what you would bind it for. Not super rattly. And these 2 buttons do have a different feel. This is more of a thump and this is more of a sharp point where it activates. This, you can't click in, it just has directional. Let's move on to our trigger here. Single stage and a very short pull. Definitely less impressive than the last one we looked at. I'm not sure exactly what these are used for. You can see it says mapping and preset. They feel less wobbly than the WinWing, so that is good. It's a little weird that most of the buttons for this stick are on the back side. You would think it'd be almost inverted to where the buttons are mainly over here, so it's more accessible. They actually feel not half bad at all. Throttle here, there's not a ton to say about it. It feels decent. It's not awful. You do kind of get different variances of pressure needed to move it all the way because of this little boot here. Once you get there, there's kind of a stopping point. Do you see that? And then you have to push harder. And for rudder or the twist, it feels like there is less movement overall. Overall, not terrible. There's another button here. Now, stick feel and buttons for the Logitech. It is noticeably smaller in hand, but it does feel like it fits your hand relatively well. That is a lot of play. It's not gonna lie, it does not feel great. Throttle is definitely worse. Very short range. Obviously, it has like a pivot versus an actual slider or something like that. Buttons on the base actually don't feel bad. The little hat switch is rubberized, which is kind of a nice feature. Doesn't feel half bad. Again, you're not getting a lot of tactile feedback. Overall, not bad though. These buttons, solid again. Now there is a button right here, which is kind of a weird spot for it, where your thumb rests. This doesn't feel bad either. And then the trigger, which goes all the way up to the top. It's kind of an interesting design. Let's ghost this trigger together. If you were even just resting your hand there, like that's so, oh, it doesn't take much. Let us feel how the stick feels. She said, oh, all I feel is mush, I won't lie. Similar idea with the boot here to the Thrustmaster, but it appears to be more poorly executed. You can see no dampening, obviously. Not a huge fan of this so far. And now, buttons and stick feel for the VKB. Buttons, we have a big button right on top here. Pretty solid, pretty distinct feel. Not super rattly. I don't dislike that. This stick is for like World War II planes, so that's another reason why it does look different. A hat switch here is very obviously plastic, but it's very distinct, very tactile. We have a paddle on this one. Very short throw, a little bit loose at the very end there. Feels solid overall though. Only 3 buttons on the base, 3 distinct buttons. Very tactile, a little bit wobbly, but not jangly. Now this is interesting. So this, as you can see, comes back to center. So you could have this be trim. So you hold, trim, up, 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 let go. Then this one you could have bound to, say, throttle. It's kind of like a mini trim wheel, so maybe this would be better for trim. This has little clicks in it, which is really nice. It almost has a perception of dampening, but it feels like there's like certain spots it wants to be. So if I'm over here, it wants to be right there. It feels like there's dampening forward and back though. There is some kind of dampening forward and back, but that same dampening is non-existent left and right. Now, Turtle Beach, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited about this one. Just on the top of the stick here, there are many things. Button on the right, button on the left, they're very not tactile enough, I would say. Button in the middle, again, not super tactile. And then a little wheel here, which would be phenomenal for trim. Oh my gosh, it's like a mini trim wheel. That's great. Now this is a screen. It's not plugged in right now, so we will get to that later. So this is a hat switch that doesn't have distinct directions. It's more of like a, almost like a cursor. Very smooth, feels good. Distinct click in. I like that a lot. And then this is a directional hat switch. Yeah, that is great. I really do like that a lot. Onto the actual base of the stick. The Xbox buttons over here, which also have their own little designation. It says B2, B1, etc. They feel fine, not super tactile. Over here, exact same idea. Then these are the Xbox buttons, home button, pause. This is where this thing shines, in my opinion. You could either set these both as throttle. Obviously, that's not ideal because you're gonna have to take your hand off the stick and go, if you wanna go up and throttle. What I would suggest, set 1 to throttle, 1 to flaps, and then you are in business. And there's a distinct notch for nothing and a distinct, that's not as distinct at the top. Either way, it is very nice. Now on this one, it's important to note, this is adjustable so that it keeps your hand at whatever level you would like your hand to be. Now let's ghost this trigger together. Let's see. Oh, this is very similar to the Logitech where there's almost no resistance. Now, one thing that should be of note, because this stick is much taller than the rest, so you can see the leverage it has on the base, especially because the base is not very long front to back. It is a lot wider though. So yeah, you see that left and right, pretty much fine. Forward and back, it wants to lift up. Now I'll hold it down to give a accurate representation of what it would feel like if it did stay in place. It doesn't feel mushy, but it just feels very springy. Obviously no dampening there. Not bad, kind of middle of the road, I would say, especially for something in this price point. So now it is time for the moment of truth. We have the Ursa Minor, the WinWing plugged in here. We're basically going to check, does Microsoft Flight Sim detect it? What are the default binds? So yes, it does detect it. You can see right here, WinWing, Ursa Minor, Civil Flight. We'll click it. We want to see, does it have a set of default binds? And it looks like we don't. So aileron axis is not bound. Let's bind a couple things here. And okay, I've bound a couple things. We'll go ahead and load into a flight. So, and of course we'll load into an A320 since that is what this stick is based off of. And as we fly here, we will kind of go into our conclusion for this stick, talking about the price, talking about what I paid, talking about what you can buy it for now, etc., etc. Let's get in here and see how it feels. Okay, so we are loaded in here. All I have bound is elevator, aileron, as you can see the stick moving in the bottom left there, and then our throttle. I haven't bound everything. Obviously, you would want to bind more in reality. The fact that this doesn't have default binds, I would say, is not really a deal breaker. Also, I noticed there are lights on the base, which is pretty cool, but some people want that, especially beginners who are buying these cheaper flight sticks. Not that you can't be advanced and fly them as well, but especially for people who are just getting started, this may be their first time ever really getting into flight sims. Having default binds is just a nice stepping off point. While we're flying along here, let's talk about the pricing. Also, it felt really great on takeoff. I did notice a little bit of movement every once in a while towards the front of the stick, but nothing super important to write home about. Now, for the WinWing, the MSRP for this stick is $79.90. Full transparency, I paid $139.90. The shipping on their website, which this is important because this stick feels really good, but I'm gonna be very critical here. WinWing's website is an absolute crap show. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, it is so horribly bad, but now it is available on Amazon, so you can avoid their website completely for $79.99. We will be rating these sticks on the price category based on what you can actually get them for right now. So here is the Ursa Minor, the A320 stick, which the dampening feels really good on, by the way, even in flight. And now, of course, we have the Thrustmaster. Same exact idea. Going to our settings, going to controls, it has been detected, T-Flight Stick X. We do have a set of default binds, even including things like aileron trim, which I assume is this little hat switch here. Let's just check elevator. Yes, elevator trim and elevator axis, love to see it. And then throttle, these are just the kind of the basic things that you want set, because you're not going to change what elevator, aileron, and throttle are really bound to on these. And as you can see, throttle is also bound by default. We'll do the same plane again just so everything is sterile. We are all loaded in here with the Thrustmaster. I will start increasing throttle. A little bit of a slightly awkward position for that throttle just because it's off center, so take with that whatever you will. Now for the Thrustmaster, the MSRP, so the price on their website is $44.99. I don't think it's available on their website anymore. I believe they're probably phasing this out. Okay, slight note here. It's harder to tell these things when you're just feeling the stick not in the sim, but that took so little amount of pressure to rotate there, which I didn't particularly love. So again, as we fly along here, let's talk about the price. Like I said, MSRP $44.99. I don't believe it's available on their website. Again, they're probably phasing this out. It is a very, very old design. Same with their T-Flight HOTAS. That's a very old design, but they just did the refresh with the Microsoft Flight Sim version of it. I paid $56.94 on Amazon, so slightly more than MSRP, but not much more at all. And now we have the Logitech controls, and there it is. SciTech Extreme 3D Pro Stick. Let's check. Do we have any default binds? We do. I'm worried that some of these will need software. Now, I am very much, people are going to hate me for this, I hate having to download extra software for every little piece of hardware you have. It's a piece of hardware. I don't want to have software go with every single one of them. I wish they would just work in the sim. Now, pricing for the Logitech. This is the cheapest stick on the list by a pretty big margin. The MSRP on Logitech's website is $34.99. I paid $37.88 on Amazon, which is basically exactly MSRP considering taxes and whatnot. Okay, this is actually something of very big importance. You know, I talked about how rattly this was. Watch my rudder pedals. I'm not touching my rudder pedals with my feet. The part of the stick that just wobbles, not putting any real pressure to twist it, I'm getting that much rudder movement. That's essentially a deal breaker. That's pretty horrid, I'm not gonna lie. This doesn't feel awful, the stick itself. The score for the Logitech on price, which will be a 10 out of 10 because this is the cheapest stick on the entire video. And now the VKB, going up to settings, controls, and it does show up. Let's see, do we have any default binds? No, we do not. I kind of assumed that. And here we are loaded in. Considering it is a separate stick and base, you would think it would feel the best. I guess we'll have to just find out. Also, as I was setting this up, I noticed the cable, which does disconnect, so this isn't a huge point, is much shorter than the other ones. It's literally going straight across my desk and my PC is right here on the other side. And it was almost not quite long enough. So far, this is the second best feeling stick of them all. That WinWing one does feel amazing. Now, pricing. The MSRP on this, as you probably suspected, is a little more than the other ones. $120 for the stick and base. Now, that wouldn't seem like anything significant if the stick could just come out of the base easily, but since you're having to kind of permanently put it together, I wouldn't really think about that as a plus. I paid $162. Shipping was $42 for this one. Couldn't find any other way to get this stick besides their website. That is, I'm just gonna be honest, an absolutely massive downside. It isn't leagues above some of the other things we tried. It's better in certain ways, but it's not leagues above. Okay, and here we are loaded in with the Velocity One flight stick. Now, first things first, this defaults in Xbox mode, and it is not very intuitive how to change it. This ring down here is how you navigate the menu and select and go back, things like that. So it defaults to Xbox mode. You have to switch to PC, obviously, because we're on PC. Now, go up to Settings, Controls, and here it is. I would assume this one should have default binds, and it does. There we go. Now, this screen up here, besides navigating the menus, I'm not sure what it would even show because you're never going to look at it. I'm just going to say that off the bat. Okay, another thing to mention, we loaded in. I noticed we didn't have any audio, and it switched our audio to the Velocity One, which is kind of interesting. We're only getting wind sound and no engine noise, so ignore that. Another thing, it appears it is kind of reset everything, so I can't use right click to look around the cockpit, which is very interesting. Do any of this? Okay, so hat switch up here, the one that has as many directions as you want, is now look around the cockpit, which is weird. I don't know why it would make my mouse one undo. That doesn't make much sense to me. Test rudder. Rudder works, great. I haven't been testing them on most of them. The ones that all have the twist sticks, all the rudder did work. Oh my God, okay, so y'all saw that. That was even hard to notice. When I went to rotate, the whole device just came up. Because you have to mentally put pressure into the stick so it keeps the base on the ground and pull back at the same time, which I really do not prefer. Left and right for aileron feels fine. Anyway, let's talk about pricing for the Velocity One. The Turtle Beach I paid $0 for, like I said earlier. Xbox sent this to me. I've never talked to Turtle Beach in my entire life. This has no bearing on my review of it. The MSRP is $129.99, but definitely it's important, this thing. Like, you can't just pull. It makes it harder to be smooth too, because you're forcing your hand into the little palm rest here and pulling back at the same time, which makes it, I would say, less precise. So that is it, the 5 cheapest flight sticks from these 5 manufacturers. Now, here are the totals on screen out of 40. Also, I kind of realized the packaging was weighted too high, so I will redo the totals and put the totals on screen now for if we don't include packaging at all. Now, the WinWing One in both scenarios, I think that is by far the best feeling flight stick out of all these. Kind of my only gripe with it is there's not enough buttons on the actual stick, but it's modeled after a real life plane, so you can't hit it for that one. If you enjoy these kind of comparisons, please let me know in the comments, like this video, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time.